Hello, this is Michael Wojcik with the Rochester City Council update for July 18th, 2016. A long series of meetings today. I'm still coaching baseball, so I went from the committee of the whole to go get all sweaty coaching baseball in the heat and then show up at the last minute for the city council meeting. So if you want to know why I looked more ridiculous than usual, there you go. A few things happened today. 5 things I'm going to talk to you about. First of all, the Energy Action Plan. It was reviewed by the City Council, got a very positive reception. It has a lot of great insight on what we are doing well and what we can do better in the city of Rochester. Ultimately, come 2031, we're going to have a lot of control of our power supply. We have opportunities to perhaps more aggressively go after geothermal or solar for heating and cooling. The electrification of our vehicle fleet is going to be very large, and just energy efficiency, energy efficiency, energy efficiency. There's so much low-hanging fruit that we still have to get. We just need to go do it. Also, in the committee of the whole meeting, we had an update on the Parks Master Plan. We believe this might be the first master plan park park system wide that we've ever done, and some very good information on the facilities. There were a couple dozen facilities that they were talking about needs in the city, and I'm glad that not a single one of them was a hockey rink in Mayo Park, because I'm pretty defensive of that space, as is most people in the community, as it turns out. So that was kind of good. I will say that I'm going to look for more information, but they sent us a link to the document like a couple hours before the meeting, so that was really convenient. I do want to go ahead and take a look at that, because the presentation was incredibly weak on just trail connectivity and getting rid of a lot of gaps in the system that we have. I mean, the Country Club Manor is maybe 10,000 people that don't have safe access to the rest of the system because there's a road that has 0 safe crossings. So we got to do better on that and that connectivity. It's great if you have a great system, but you got to be able to safely get to it as well. Also, we brought up just a short topic. The state of Minnesota has threatened to negatively affect our affinity group representation here in Rochester, and what that is there's 4 affinity groups in Rochester, and in the state of Minnesota that have representation through the legislature, and 2 of them are represented here in Rochester. The Council on, I think it's people of African heritage. I'm going to massacre these names. And there's also a Chicano Latino Council. And the latter, I think, has been dissolved in Rochester. The former is being threatened with being dissolved. I asked the city administrator, and the council agreed that we're going to send a letter to the state saying, hey, we're a huge net taxpayer in the state of Minnesota. Please don't do this to us. We're working really hard to build strong relationships between people of color and law enforcement and the community, and bring them into our community and engage them, because I don't want to see the repeat here in Rochester of what we're seeing all over the country, and that's a lot of violence and tears shed. And it's we're doing a lot better here, I think. I think we're building those relationships, and but we're probably sitting on a powder keg like everyone else, and I don't think this is the time to be cutting some of the liaisons and the bridges between communities of color and the more established local government. So I hope they get our message loud and clear, and that came as a request. Citizens sent a note in. Thank you very much for doing that, and I'm happy to have carried it forward. Next up, move ahead to the City Council meeting. A couple interesting things. The Nicholas, very substantial number of changes. We put the Mac Hamilton clause on that thing, which basically means you have to build what you say you're going to build. And once again, they didn't build what they showed the City Council they were going to build, and they claimed that there were some honest mistakes. But at the end of the day, we decided that the consequence for violating your agreement with the public would be that you have to write a letter and ask for forgiveness, and that was the extent of what we did. And I just think that's a real shame. I think it speaks a lack of backbone, a lack of integrity in the Rochester City Council. And I acknowledge many times it's a pretty sharp-looking building. I don't have so much of an issue with that, but when you have a contract with the community and you're expected to deliver, I think we as elected officials should force them to do so. But this is that the same group of good old boys that have been pulling these games for a long time, continue to do so, and they continue to not face any consequences for doing that. I mean, do you really think that when we have somebody has to write a letter explaining their changes and the city council just passes it on the spot? And by the way, the neighborhood never even got a chance to see it or weigh in, and apparently they missed some changes as well. But do you really think that forcing them to write a letter, basically saying, yeah, we did this and we should have done this, is that really going to prevent the next development from doing the same thing? I think not. I think the decision to do this, not only that, but not to undo some of the unnecessary changes that they made, I think that was it was an insult, and I think it speaks to a lack of integrity in our processes in the city of Rochester. And speaking of a lack of integrity, let's get to the thing that a lot of folks were interested in, and that was the third arts proposal. We set up a request for proposals, had a 6-month submission period, and received 2 proposals for future use of the armory. Some people, very well connected in this community, they write very large campaign contribution checks, so you can see who's on there. You can see who they're connected to pretty easily. All you got to do is read the campaign finance reports. Decided that they were going to, 100 days after the fact, submit another one, which is so grossly unethical in so many ways, because you don't accept submissions after other people's submissions are public information, because you can base your submission based on what they did. And Campion was absolutely right. He kind of blew up at the whole notion that we would just ignore our RFP process, and because somebody happened to be very well connected with all the right people, they were going to get their thing in front of the city council. It maddens me to how this got to us so fast without any of us even really being aware of it, except for a select few in particular, because we've been talking about this $1 billion unfunded liability in infrastructure, $20 million a year for 50 years, that we can't do anything to address. We can't even talk about it, and yet somehow this rises to the very top. So I'm not pleased that this proposal came forward. A few of us just said, yeah, we didn't even bother reading it. We're just insulted that we're sitting here talking about it. And it was there were some people who were well connected that brought that proposal forward, and I don't know how much of that is going to be publicly available or not, but I was insulted by it. I think it's a slap in the face to the organizations that submitted their proposals. I think at least one of those proposals is very viable. I'm doing some additional research on the finances of another one. But, if you want a city council with integrity, what we saw here was not integrity. And fortunately, I mean, Nick blew up, I blew up, Mark Bilderback wasn't happy, Sandra wasn't happy, and it was pretty clear it was going nowhere, so then everybody just kind of got on board and said, yeah, okay, well, we won't do this. So, I mean, we're going to have a fair process, and, I'm looking forward to I'm looking forward to going ahead and, putting this behind us and evaluating the 2 proposals that actually did meet our request for proposal process correctly. So, that's all I got. I'm exhausted. Catch you next time. Bye.